Paisanos, welcome back to another episode of Calcio Culture, your one-stop shop for all things Serie A and Italian football. This is your host, Vos, joined by both my co-hosts today, Logs and Motts. Logs has got his sunglasses on. I think he's hiding maybe some tears that were shed this weekend over some poor performances from AC Milan, is my guess. He did miss last week, so he's got a lot to say this week, we hope.
Going on, Paisans. I just didn't want anybody to see my puffy red eyes. I'm still trying to fix that after a tough weekend here. But happy to be back. Was on the West Coast out to see the debut of the MLS's brand new team in San Diego. And what a time it was. 2-0 over the reigning champs, LA Galaxy. We love to see it. But at least one team's doing well over another.
I'm also here with all brand new equipment. So we'll see how this goes. But bought a new mic, rebought the Beats because I lost those. And then I also bought a new office chair, which hasn't came in yet, which I'm excited for. So hopefully this episode goes well with this new mic. But hello, Paisanos.
Are you getting all of our sponsorship money? Because I haven't seen any of that. What's up with the shopping spree?
I don't know, just feeling it, got to sometimes ball out when Juve breaks your heart. And they lose in the Coppa Italia in the second leg to a C team Empoli, a little retail therapy.
Spend money to make money. That's it.
And they're just investments. Exactly. They're investments.
I forgot that Coppa Italia thing happened. That seems like so long ago. So much happened this weekend. But let's just go ahead and get into it here. Match day 27 this past weekend. On Thursday of last week, we had a match week 9 replay of Milan versus Bologna. So we're talking that today, and then we're going to give you a little bit of a preview of the Champions League, Europa League, and Conference League that will be going on during the week this week. But to kick things off, there's really only one place to start. It was battle against number 1 and number 2, Inter at Napoli. Thriller of a game. I think this was the best atmosphere I've seen out of any game this season, outside of maybe one of the Milan derbies. It was absolute pandemonium in Naples. This one ended 1-1. We saw an absolute screamer from Federico Di Marco from a free kick. Made it look so easy. Like, actually, it made soccer look like it wasn't hard to play. He hit it so well. I couldn't believe it. And then I think it was in the 86th minute, absolute war up until that point. Philip Billing comes off the bench and kind of just drives through play to level it at 1-1. And the Maradona absolutely erupts. I think every player on Napoli was on the field and every coach was on the field as well to celebrate. It was really one of the better, what's the word I'm looking for here? Commercials, info things for Serie A that I think we've seen this season. Like, the amount of passion and emotion that was in this game was evident all from the first minute to the 90th minute. The tackles were great. It was a really fiercely competitive game, a lot of physicality. And the refs did a really good job of letting that go, which we hardly ever see in this league. So it's really good to see that. And it was just kind of the battle you look for number 1 and number 2. Ultimately, the question I want to lead with for you guys is, who is this a win for? Because realistically, for me, my initial thought was, this is a win for Napoli getting the result, because you know what, like, they are vastly depleted when you compare them to Inter Milan. But at the same time, Inter went into this game in first place and Napoli was in second place. So this is all they needed to do, really. It would have been helpful to get a win, but at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. What would Antonio Conte would have taken a draw if he was Inter, is the way I was looking at it. And kind of how Inter Milan played, I thought Inzaghi maybe overthought it a little bit and being like, Antonio Conte wins Scudettos by winning games 1-0 or getting draws in games that are hard games, so I'm going to do that. But just interested to get your thoughts there, and we can start with that.
This would have been a win for Napoli if Napoli was still in first. Obviously, Inzaghi may have overthought it, played a little bit conservatively, although it was end-to-end action the entire time. But when you look at it from what Napoli need out of this, they needed to be top of the table. This is an opportunity to take direct points from Inter, and so they needed to win. This isn't a win for them. They got out unscathed here. Philip Billing coming through, a Bournemouth legend. Also just love to see that he's becoming a little bit more European after Brexit. He has Philip on the back of his jersey. It's no longer Billing. So good to see him get a little Mediterranean, a little maybe South American with it. But Napoli needed to win this game. They're at home, unreal atmosphere. Don't know why this wasn't CBS Game of the Week. This should have been all over primetime television here in the U.S. It wasn't. But Inter got what they needed to get out of this game. Napoli needed to secure 3 points again, just because directly from Inter, this would have been huge for the Scudetto race.
I have a different opinion, and to be honest with you, Napoli proved me wrong. I thought that they were out of the race. This is Inter's race to lose, and watching that game, it was embarrassing by Inter. They fully just basically not rolled over because they did get 1 point, but the way in which they played, this was not an Inter game. This is the worst I've seen them play in two years maybe. So in their perspective and an Inter perspective, yeah, sure, they got the draw and they were away, but the way in which they got the draw, I think actually allows Napoli to take some momentum from this, build on it, and possibly actually go win the Scudetto. If Napoli replace Cavada or they have Cavada, they win this game 3-1, maybe 4-1. They were chance after chance after chance. Inter did nothing the whole game besides hold on to by their skin of their teeth and have DeMarco have an absolute insanely nice free kick. I think Inter even got a little lucky there wasn't a PK. Dumfries his that ball hit him in his hand in the box. I think that should have been a PK given. But Napoli just had chance after chance after chance, and I think that this shows a couple different things. One, I don't know what is going on with Inter or what they're missing. I really don't know because it's the same team as last year that ran away with the Scudetto, just deeper and more players. And they haven't beat Juventus this year, they haven't beat Milan this year, and now they haven't beat Napoli. So they can't win the big games. And then on the flip side of it, it shows me that like, dude, this is just a masterclass. Antonio Conte, he rallied the troops. Everybody believed the passion, all that on Napoli's side. So I'm here to say that it is a race and Napoli can win it. I just don't know if they have the quality to do so, but they definitely have the passion, the desire, and the want to win it. And so I think it's a win for Napoli more than Inter.
I think
I want,
that's go ahead, Lux. Yeah.
no, I want to talk more about Napoli because I think this game, I think the storyline here is that this should have been a Napoli win. They were playing like they wanted all 3 points, but I do want to touch on something that Motts, you kind of noted on. This Inter team, yes, it's the same as last year, but are their legs catching up to them? The big theme that we've noted down here and that we've been talking about for the majority of the season is that they don't close out games. They're not running away with games and they're not running away with the season. And so I wonder, we're now in the back quarter. This is the final quarter of the season. Are
11
their
games.
legs are their legs catching up with them at this point? Is their age showing? Are they slowing down like they slow down in games? Are they slowing down in the season? And it may be that might be the storyline heading in to the end of the race here, that Inter just don't have the energy nor the legs, and they're just too old to continue.
Yeah, they're older, but where I'm gonna push back on the legs aspect of it is at the beginning of the season, it was the same thing, and everybody was super fresh. They had 100% fitness. Everybody was good to go, and it's been the same theme all season long, like you just said. They get a lead and then they go into a shell. And what I'm gonna point to is more Inzaghi than the squad, right? Because past Inter would have killed this game, death by 1,000 passes. Motts kind of like coined that term this year. Last season, when they ran around the Scudetto, they didn't just go up 1-0 and pack it in. They went up 3-0 and then continued to try to score. And that's more of the winning recipe that's in this league now. It's really hard to hold on to those 1-0 leads, even 2-1 leads. Like we saw Napoli kind of squeak those out a lot this year. So I think this might be Inzaghi in an attempted evolution about how he wants his team to play. Like we said a million times this year, we called him out. If you're going to be a legendary coach in this league, this is going to be the season for you. And again, I said it. This Antonio Conte won leagues countless times doing this kind of thing. And maybe Inzaghi just like, we couldn't really get it done 2 years ago. Like maybe I have to change something up and go into this defensive shell. And it's not the way of doing it, very clearly we're seeing. And then the other aspect that I think every team in the league has done really well against Inter, and I think especially Napoli in this game. Last year, when they ran away with the Scudetto, they were lethal on counterattacks. Absolutely lethal. Everybody got forward and they would finish off moves nonstop. Teams smartened up now, and have kind of stopped that from happening as much because Inter wanted to make every game as open as possible so they could just drive the ball down the middle of the field, kick it out to the wingbacks. And most teams have done a really good job of stopping that and making Inter beat them in other ways, which we see them struggle. Marcus Thuram has really slowed down. Lautaro Martinez hasn't really done much this year at all. And it's because they haven't had those areas to play in that they have last year.
Yeah, they definitely. I mean, this game they didn't counterattack at all. Instead of counterattacking like they used to, they were just clear the ball and allow Napoli to come back in and sit deep, which was just stupid, I thought. But to answer your question, Logan, I do think it's a little bit of both. Bose's answer and Zaghi, but I do think it's a little bit of legs because number one, they're playing game after game. They have three competitions they're still in. They're still in the Coppa Italia. They're still in the Champions League. They've gone far, relatively far in the Champions League the last two games. And yes, they were fresh to start the season, but how fresh are Inter players? Because we do know that 90% of them are on their international teams. So, and we know that there was the World Cup this past summer. So they really didn't have a whole lot of time to rest. And they are the oldest or the second oldest team in the Serie A. Both of these teams are the first and second. I forgot which one is which in terms of average age. So I do think some of their legs are slowing down because of the amount of games. And they're still in all three competitions. So it's only going to get harder for them. And then I think it's a little bit of Inzaghi just he doesn't know, he can't figure it out. Like he doesn't know how to rotate the guys and sometimes potentially how to motivate them or how to allow them to stay concentrated for a full 90. So I think that's what we need to see from Inzaghi for him to take the next step because we know his system is beautiful, right? He plays great calcio, but that's I think what his next step is, and we'll see it in these next couple of weeks and months if he can make that step. Or potentially maybe Inter need to move on to somebody who can manage these competitions better because there's no reason why Inter should be stumbling as many times as they have this year in the league. And then we'll see what they do in the Champions League as well.
One other thing on Inzaghi that Motts, you've said a million times before. Questionable player selection, number one, and then questionable substitutions. And he took out Bastoni, and I think IFTV tweeted this. Every time Bastoni comes out, basically they end up conceding a goal. And it just doesn't, like, why are you taking out one of your center backs who probably hasn't really run that much, didn't really bomb forward like the way we think about Bastoni in this game, and was probably having his best performance of the year and is arguably the best defender in the league.
Mm-hmm.
Why are you
Bastoni
taking
balled.
off? Like,
This
why?
game.
What is the point of taking off your best defender when you're sitting deep?
I think that it's
You could
because
see
of
it in
the amount
Bastoni's
of
face. Did you
competitions.
see, like, when he got taken off the pitch, he was like, why am I coming off? You could see it on his
Yeah.
face.
I think it's because of the amount of competitions. They got the Champions League next or this middle of the week. But I mean, Bastoni, I don't know why he was balling. He saved a goal from Lukaku in the first half. He played tremendously well, and I don't want to flip it to the other side, but so did Buongiorno. So it was great to see two Italian center backs just absolutely ball and save a lot of goals. But yeah, I don't know why he subbed off Bastoni, and he's been doing that a lot recently. He gets Bastoni off in like the 70th ish minute, which I guess it's because Carlos Augusto can slot in there, but it's definitely a drop off in terms of quality for sure.
I still think the storyline here is Napoli.
Yeah,
I
let's flip it to Napoli.
but
I'm good with that.
I want to talk about Napoli quite a bit here. One, the Maradona was phenomenal. Vos nailed it. That atmosphere was second to none this season.
I don't remember ever seeing an atmosphere like that there. Usually when I watch Napoli home games, I'm kind of bummed about it because a lot of the time the stadium kind of sucks and it's quiet. And then
You must have not watched them when they won the Scudetto.
Yeah,
They
that's
would
true.
they would go
That's
crazy.
true. That is true.
Well, the difference with that season though is they ran away with the Scudetto. I think they locked it up with like 6 or 7 games left. So it was pretty clear that they were going to win the Scudetto. This one they're in literally a deadlock with Inter. So this was one of the biggest games that we've seen in quite some time. But I don't know where this play style came from. This wasn't your typical Conte style, but they should be playing like this all the time. If they played like this, especially in the first half, with the amount of chances that they got and the amount of aggression that they were playing in the front third, this was a scary Napoli team, even without Kvaratskhelia. I mean, you even saw Lubaka getting forward. It was like they had numbers on numbers on numbers getting forward. Scott McTominay was hammering missiles into the box.
Yeah,
Lukaku was
Scott
actually
McTominay had the hardest shot I've ever seen in my life, I think.
That was an
he-
insane
he's
save.
great
Insane
save.
save. He
Yeah,
had a couple ones at the end too that could have went in that Inter players got their legs in front of. But Lokes, I agree with you. Like this was a crazy way for Napoli to play. You don't see this a lot. You cannot. I don't care if you're on one game a week. You cannot play with this type of intensity and like mentality every single game. Your guys will be worn out by the end of the season. Like they were go. They were on Inter the entire game, which it would be great to play like that every single game, but it's just not sustainable.
Right, but if you play like this, even first half especially against the bottom half of the table, you're up 2-3 nothing the first half, and you can coast in the second. Like
But
this was an absolute performance. 62% possession against an Inter squad, and that's not a Napoli play style. And I'm glad that they switched it up a bit there because they easily should have had 1 or 2 goals in the first half. That would have been a whole
Yeah.
different game.
I mean, it's just harder to motivate players when you're playing 18th place Empoli, right? Like it's obviously all those players knew what this game is and what it could have been and what it means. Like they're all going to be like, that's not as hard to motivate them unless like as it is if you're going to play a Monza or somebody. And that's just the reality. Like I agree with you. Like in an ideal world, all your players have this mindset every single game, but that just doesn't happen because of different levels and games mean different things.
All right, you want some motivation for every single game for the rest of the season, Motts? Here's your motivation. You are 1 point shy of the Scudetto. Both your top players, one in the summer and one in the winter window, told you to go fuck yourself, and you need to be top of the table so that you can tell them to go shove it. How's that for motivation? All right,
I
these guys
agree
are
with
playing
you.
top tier soccer in one of the best leagues in the world, arguably the best, and they should be motivated to play every single game at the top level that they can. And if this is the top level, this should be the game that they come out with every single time.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm just letting you know it's tougher to motivate guys, but I agree.
True.
This was a masterclass by Conte.
I just motivated myself. I'm like riled up now.
Yes.
Motivate Milan players.
Okay,
I don't want to talk
we'll
about
get
it.
there. We'll get there. Yes, I agree. Masterclass on Conte. Offensive onslaught from Inter. I would say that Conte was kind of forced into doing something that he hasn't done this year and playing Lobotka and Billy Gilmore at the same time, which really, really changes up what you have to do because ordinarily that Billy Gilmore position is it is Zombo, who was not available, or it would have been Billy in this case. When you bring on Billy Gilmore there, Billy Gilmore is much more similar to Lobotka and don't give the ball away, keep the ball no matter what. And we saw that they had 68% possession or something insane like that, where they were just able to keep the ball. And yeah, those two guys are just so good at that. It does he's maybe stumbled upon something that will work against those lower teams now that he didn't expect. And it's also a very different way of playing than Conte has ever really wanted to even do, play with kind of two Regista guys. Mats, what are you trying to jump in here?
Also, in the second half, Inter subbed off a Khan who was their kind of ball. I want the ball. Let's dominate ball possession. So with Napoli having two Regista players and Inter having to sub off their main one, I do think that it definitely tilted it way more than what it actually would have been if a Khan was healthy and playing the whole game.
That's fair.
But I agree with what you're saying. He might have stumbled upon something with Billy and Ibaka.
And then the other thing that I want to point out that is very important. This is Politano's best game I think I've seen in 3 years. He was electric off of that side. And without that in this game, if he was regular form Politano that he's been all season, they do not get the point out of this game. Because Raspadori was essentially useless. Every chance that he got, he fucked up. And that's what's frustrating about Raspadori on another tangent. He's really good at getting into the right positions and he does the right movement, but he's not top quality to like get any of it done. So I think the Politano thing is a big one. And without David Neres, Politano is going to have to be that if they want to stay in the race. And then the last guy I do want to talk about is Romelu Lukaku. I thought he played really well, very well, even though he didn't have a ton of opportunities and he didn't score. It's tough because on a different team, I think we would have been talking about Lukaku as one of the best players of the season because he's more of right now, this is new school Lukaku, is like a focal point of the offense, but he's not really a goal scorer anymore, right? Like we always thought about Lukaku as having like the shitty touch, he can't pass. And then he's just pulling this out. Like you could hammer a ball into him, he was receiving it, playing one touch layoffs, And if they had somebody, and it would be Raspadori, that could play off of that, it could be lethal because nobody can match Lukaku's physicality. And the fact that he's be able to morph his game into like this hold up little like bit and piece kind of guy is just really interesting to me. And I think he does deserve his flowers because everybody's saying, where are the goals? Where are the goals? And this is something that he's adding that we've never seen in this game.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely more back to goal now, which is a change up from his younger years. Obviously, he's gotten much older. And I think you even saw that during his Roma time that he's slowed down, but he's adapted so well to this lack of speed, I would say, and just his presence on the field is something to be aware of, and his positioning, I think, during this Inter game was phenomenal. But that's one thing that they need to capitalize on, and they don't have it. Like I noted, Raspadori is really bad still. Again, like you got it right. His he makes great opportunities. He's in the right spot, but he bottled so many chances. I mean, he got the ball stuck under his feet. I don't know how many times in this game, which you just can't take any opportunity lightly in a match like this. And so it was tough to see that the other guys out there, Politano, Lukaku, creating opportunities, creating chances, and then watching Raspadori just absolutely fumble the bag is really frustrating. It needs to change to go forward to get more points here.
Yeah, I think that Raspadori definitely should have had that. He should have scored a goal. He rounded the goal. He did everything well, got by the goalie, and then took way too big of a touch and went out of bounds instead of passing it in the net, which obviously sucks for Napoli because they could have easily won this game with the amount of chances they had. But I mean, I know we already talked about what happened in the game, but if you really just look at the stats of this game,
They
they
fucked up.
sometimes stats don't accurately.
They
Yeah.
absolutely fucked up.
Sometimes stats don't accurately reflect the game. Inter were never in this game at all. There was no point that it even looked like Inter wanted to win this game. And the entire time, it was Napoli all wanted to win. I literally wrote this down for Napoli. Desire,
Any quotes?
hustle, passion, energy, and then quality with a question mark because they don't have the quality. They have everything else, and that's Antonio Conte. And they, like I said, when we started talking, he totally proved me wrong. They can definitely go win this. They just have a tougher. Oh no, they have I think they have the more favorable schedule coming up than Inter. Well, in terms of the games that they play are slightly more difficult, but they have less games. So that's what I mean when I say they have a easier schedule coming up.
Last thing on Napoli, I just want to point out Alessandro Bongiorno's tackle slash blocked shot. I think it was on Marcus Thuram. We might look back at as if they end up winning Scudetto, like that could actually be the reason, like that he saved a goal, basically. So we still got to shout him out because I had called him out a couple times the last couple weeks. He played out of his goddamn mind. I thought Rachmani played good again, not as good as we've seen. And the other guy that I was really, really impressed with is Spinazzola, and he's been really good all year. And without him, I don't think they'd be in this position either.
Yeah, and to piggyback off Bongiorno, I know I said little something about him, but he also blocked the Marco shot as well. That was a one-on-one with the
Oh yeah,
goalie and he
true. I
came
forgot
in
about that
and
one.
yeah, so he saved 2 goals.
Anything else on Napoli, Inter? You guys good? Because that was a good one.
I just want this game every week.
Yeah,
I'd rather
I
watch
agree
that
with that.
than I'd rather watch
This
that
is
than
back
Roma.
on, according to Motts. They're back in the mix.
It's official. It's official.
It's official. But moving it on to, there was 2 games we got to talk about with this team. This is going to be a long conversation. Let me just
We can make it
preface
really
that.
short.
No, we
can
got
make
to
it short.
preface this. This is going to be a long conversation. AC Milan played 2 games over the past week. They played Bologna on Thursday, which was the makeup game for match week number 9. They lost that game 2-1. Then, and that game was in Bologna, I will say. Then on Sunday, they hosted Lazio, also lost that game 2-1. And I would say there are a lot of similarities in terms of what happened in these 2 games. And this is really bad for Milan. That's 3 losses in a row in the league, which you really don't expect from a team like this. Logan was just on last or 2 weeks ago saying he thinks they're going to finish in 4th place. I don't really see that being possible now. But these are 2. This is a weird one because, like, on paper, like, you lose to Bologna, you lose to Lazio. It's like they are hard teams. Like, you want a result out of one of these, but the on pitch, what we saw was so bad in both of these games that I don't even know who to point the finger at. Like, is it the coach? Is it the players? Is it everybody?
Before Logs goes, I just want to say since Logue's bold prediction of Napoli top 4, 3 straight L's.
I was wrong. I was wrong about the top 4 prediction. Yeah, listen, after these 3 straight 2-1 losses, I have lost all confidence in this team. Part of me thinks that maybe I finally hit rock bottom. I thought I hit rock bottom with Fonseca. Apparently not. This is kind of it. I'm almost done with the season. To come out, to get eliminated from the Champions League, you're out of the Coppa Italia. No, we have one more Coppa Italia game that we're probably to lose. But to lose a big competition like that especially the board was really rooting for, and to have a 2-1 loss to Torino, you come into your makeup game against Bologna, which you're tied neck and neck with, absolutely need to get 3 points out of it, and you get a 2-1 loss there after being up against a Bologna team that I still don't think is that strong. We'll talk about them in a second, but still struggled at home again this past weekend. And then all that said and done, okay, fine. 2 losses in a row. Let's bounce back. We're at home. We're against Lazio, who I also called out for not being that good. And you put out that kind of performance the entire game is just pitiful. It's pitiful stuff. And the most frustrating thing about this, and I'm just going to talk high level because, I mean, you guys can get into the tactics of these two things, but I'm just looking at this more long term, is at every single position, aside from our center backs, I guess I would say, you could sell our starters for 30 plus, 40 plus million each. I mean, it's not like we don't have quality. We have guys at every single position that if you just pluck them and put them in a different team, they're immediately adding value. And to see us go out and put on performances that are individually and as a team effort so incomplete, it just boggles my mind. And then on top of that, Continental comes out this past couple days and has some bullshit response about how it's hard to prepare for these games. I think he quoted and he said, it's hard to prepare when every single 3 days you have another huge tilt. When you're at this level, yes, you want every 3 days to be there a huge tilt. That's what you play for. That's what you've come all this way to do. And to blame it on the fact that you have this rancid schedule is beyond me. The guy came in to this job and with 24 hours to prepare, beat Juve and Inter in consecutive games. So that should be no excuse. And just to see the lack of interest, the lack of pride, the lack of want in these last couple of games is just, it just boggles my mind. And we are in the spot in a table where we had opportunities to absolutely blow clear. We should have, in my opinion, based on our talent level, we should have gone 9 for 9 in these 3 games, and that would have put us in 5th right behind Juve. Think about that positioning. Now, we might as well just drop below with an essay. Torino is on a tear. We might as well drop below them. Are we just Napoli of last year? Maybe. But the big problem is, and again, you guys can go into the games themselves, but I'm just going to keep it high level here. We have no opportunity to bring in funds this summer. And I do not know if we have the outlook to keep the players on the squad. I know Reinders just went in and renewed today, but the amount of interest that he's going to have over the summer is going to be immense. Teo should be leaving. Leao's probably out the door. Santi has no choice but to stay. He just got bought. So our outlook for next year is pitiful. And again, the only positivity that I'm going to take out of this is that I'm so low on Milan and I'm so wrong all the time that we may just we might go undefeated for the rest of the season. But the way it looks is that we are dreadful. We're back to the mid 2010s, and this is going to be a long rebuild process, especially with no manager in sight.
And Motts, before you start, I just want to just set the stage a little bit more than I did. In terms of what played out in these games. In the Milan Bologna game, Milan went up 1-0 in the first half, and basically like a fluke long ball that ended up at Leao's feet. Ultimately, Bologna battled back, scored 2 goals, and won that game. Milan 2-1. This is going to be the theme. 2-1 loss made Milan look good in this game. I think they lost the XG battle by like 2 points. Go to Sunday. Lazio Milan, same thing. 2-1 made Milan look unbelievable. They should have been down 2-0 in the first 7 minutes of this game. They were not. And I think it was in the 70th minute, Pavlovic gets a straight red card. Milan did battle back. Chukwueze scored in the 85th minute. And then in the 94th minute, there was a controversial penalty, I would call it, that was called Pedro steps up, buries the opportunity to win it in the 94th minute. That sets the stage. Do you guys want to talk about the penalty for a second or no?
I mean, I talked about it a lot today in the office, just by chance. And okay, he made contact. I get it. Isaacson pushed the ball 40 miles away from himself with no attempt to keep possession, no attempt to make a move thereafter. And I'm not sure, nowhere in the past, there's no precedent for the fact that that makes any difference. But it wasn't like Mignon was out of control. If Isaacson made any type of attempt to control the ball thereafter, if he had any attempt to keep the ball, Mignon would have been able to make a play on the ball. But Isaacson literally kicked it straight into the stands. And so Mignon is there, his momentum is obviously in his path. There's nothing for him to do there. Did he make contact? Yes. Is that a penalty every other day of the week? Yeah. I just think it's something to think about, the fact that Isaacson had zero intention of keeping possession there.
Yeah, I think that it matters what the player did, like what happened to the ball after he hit it. Like if that's controlled, penalty. He didn't control that in the slightest. It wasn't a real chance. Did Mignon hit him? Sure, but like if it's a race to the ball and it doesn't matter what happens afterwards, I think that doesn't really make much sense because he had. I mean, if Mignon doesn't go, if Mignon doesn't fully slide and pulls back, and that ball goes out of bounds. Like I don't think that changes Isaacson's route or the way that he went to go for the ball. And then Mignon hit him after, so I don't think it was a penalty at all, and I didn't like that to be given. What do you think, Bose?
I think it's tough because the precedent is penalty there, right? I like Logue said, I think that gets called every day of the week. On Mignon, you also need to be aware of that. Like, you know that's exactly what Isaacson's going to try to do there. So it was idiotic on Mignon. Is it harsh? I would say yeah, because of how far Isaacson kicked it away. But at the end of the day, that is always going to be called a penalty. Like if you do that at the middle of the field, if you kick a ball away and somebody tackles you late, it's a penalty. Like it's a foul. And that's essentially what did happen. Like it's weird because the ball goes out of bounds. But I think Mignon needs to be aware of that's what the player is trying to do. So I'm okay with it. I don't think really anybody's going to be all that pissed because Lazio deserved to win this game anyway. They should have absolutely destroyed them and they didn't. But that's on
Yeah.
the penalty. I don't want to spend too
I'm a
much time
little
on it.
upset.
No, I mean, let's talk about, well, yeah. All right.
I don't think I agree with Bose. We shouldn't talk more about the penalty. We should talk about
What I want to talk about is what led up to that penalty and why that penalty doesn't matter. Because Lazio should have been up 4-1, 4-0 that whole game. They outplayed, they bullied, they made Milan look like a Serie B team, Serie G team. And the fact that that ball was ever even in our box at that point in time, which I know Motts, you pointed out, and Vos, you pointed out today. What are we doing on defense in the last couple minutes of this game? There was no strategy. We were like chickens with our head cut off. We had played zero defense leading up to that penalty. So if that's what brought them the opportunity to get even into a dangerous position like that, then so be it. They earned it. They should have. We should have lost that game hours before that. So I can't point to that, and I can't even point to the red card as a reason as to why we lost this game.
I mean, the red card definitely didn't help, but one thing, like, so going back to what you said, on the earlier in your rant, is it on the players or is it on the coach? It's on. I think it's, and I've talked about this before, and I thought that Conceição was kind of correcting it. I think it's on every single level. You have Zlatan might not be able to get this done from a front office position, right? He's just an all-time player, but that's obviously way different than constructing a team. I think to even higher that, I don't know who, even higher than the Zlatan level, I don't know who fired Maldini, but that was the start of the downfall of Milan, because he is Milan, and you just fired him because you didn't give a good player more than 1 year to see what he was. Right, so there's that, and then now the Zlatan, and then lower than that, Conceição, like, he's not the manager for these players because, and I say it time and time again, but you have Teo and Leao don't wanna do the things that Conceição believes in, and that's defend for most of the game. They want to counterattack, but they don't wanna sit deep and and be disciplined. And then those are your two leaders that don't want to do that. Everybody else doesn't want to do that. But then I also think Conceição doesn't know what he's doing, because the one thing that I think didn't need to be changed was your guys' midfield pairing in Fofana and Reinders, and he went ahead and changed that and plays Musa every single game, and subbed Musa off in the Lazio game in like the 30th minute because it wasn't right. So he went in and I think overthought that, because that was the one thing that was working for Milan. And then obviously you have the players and their consistency. Like Pavlovic will play good one game, he'll get a dumb red card the next game. Pulisic has kind of been a shell of himself. João Felix is this very similar boat as Leao and Teo in terms of consistency and leadership. I see a lot of similarities to Milan and Juventus in terms of no leadership on the field, and so I think it's at all levels, and I don't know when or how this is gonna you guys are gonna right the ship and at Milan.
I think it's so clear what would right the ship, though. That's the thing. Like, if you have a manager that's like Antonio Conte at the helm, this kind of thing does not happen. Like, period. The thing that Logs was alluding to before, in the 85th minute after Chukwueze scored, the game got really open. Both teams were basically trying to win it, and Lazio were just constantly counterattacking with like 5 or 6 guys, and Milan would have like 4 guys back on defense. It just didn't make any sense. Like, everybody stopped trying to like defend. It was bizarre to watch. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. That Lazio's center back had a shot near the end of the game and ran like 80 yards to hit it. And meanwhile, the midfield isn't tracking back. The forwards aren't tracking back. The defenders aren't tracking back. The entire thing, it's literally just down to mentality. And they have, like, Conceição is 100% to blame for that. Yes, it's the players, but how are players not scared enough of the coach to be like, oh, we don't need to run at the end of the game. It's 1-1.
I don't think that's Conceição, because like he had that built in Porto. Porto were defending at all times. It's like if you see a player of Leao's stature turn the ball over and he doesn't. Okay, so we played together on a team when we were in high school. If Logan turned the ball over, we didn't. Oh my God, Logan sucks. It was like, all right, we need to now work harder for that.
Yeah,
to get the ball back. Not picking on Logan. I'm just saying, like,
I never turned the ball over. Just
there were players on the team that they did turn it over, be like, that's classic, and then we don't care. But then that's why we lost a lot of games, because we weren't all on the same page. And you have in Milan, looks like it's one, like it's 1v1v1v1
yeah,
times 11,
yeah, I know.
and then the other team is just one. Like they just have one, and they have a common goal, and it's every game. Milan look like it is 11 individuals on the pitch rather than just one. And that I agree that it can come down to the manager, because you need to make that not happen. But when you see it time and time again from every single player besides like 3, it's just going to be contagious, and you're going to get it from everybody. And you can say that Conceição has to right that. I thought he tried doing that with the Calabria, like what he did there, and screaming at everybody after the game. But if they don't listen, they're not listening. Like, what else can he do?
A couple of things to build off what Monster 6. I think that you just laid the foundation really well. But one, just to preface this all, just want to say that Calabria came on after Bologna scored their final goal. So Calabria didn't have anything to do with their win. So he didn't actually beat us in any case. To his replacement, and I'm going to bring it full circle in just a second here, but if you notice who wasn't playing for the last 3 games, his name was Kyle Walker. Kyle Walker has been hurt.
I know what you're going to say, and I was screaming out to say it.
And he has not been playing, and I think that goes to what our successes were towards the beginning of the Conceição era, right? Team play, someone out there to gel everyone. I think you saw it also with Santi Jimenez's first couple of performances. He's coming from a team, Feyenoord, who had to play together to be successful. That was his style. João Felix, even a little bit towards the beginning, he's obviously trailed off and he's terrible right now, was trying to play that team ball. But again, I think that Kyle Walker mentality had been starting to flow through the team, right? Then you remove him and look what happens. And to Motts' point that he's been saying episode after episode, is that 1v1v1v1 mentality is derived entirely from Leao and Teo. Entirely.
I
And
wouldn't
that's
say entirely.
but that's where our successes had come from previously. And so everyone else is now under the thought that, okay, we just need to beat our one guy 1v1 like Leao does, like Teo does, to be successful. That wasn't what was working a couple of games ago. Again, when Kyle Walker was playing towards the beginning of the second half of the season, Santi Jimenez came in. Now it's everyone playing for themselves. And it's so obvious when you're watching Milan. We'd have zero tactics. Less than when we had Pioli, which was my qualm the whole time. Everything is so random, and you have no idea if we have momentum, if we're about to score a goal, if we're about to concede. There's no pattern whatsoever, and so there's nothing to build off of. That's I guess I tried to write a blog post. Everyone, we're making a website. We have some blog posts. I tried to write one up, and it was kind of the core of this was we get momentum because we squeak out wins here or there. But there's nothing to build off of because there's no pattern. There's nothing to point to in film that's like, oh, that worked. No, it was some random occurrence. Even the Chukwueze goal, great header, by the way. But it was just, we eventually got the ball a little bit further up the field and Leao plays a great ball at the back post and we get a goal. But that wasn't a pattern. That's not something that we usually do. And Leao's just erratic. So it's not even like everyone else knows that he's going to do that.
This is what I decided on Leao and Teo. Same exact boat. Watching them, inefficient. That is what sticks in my brain with them. Inefficient.
So inefficient.
Leao all the time
Extremely inefficient.
gets into great positions to score, but he is incapable of shooting the ball outside of the 6-yard box. So he's basically useless when he creates this. And then number 2, Teo, all he does is get the ball on the sideline and run like kind of straight towards the center of the field and then does nothing with the ball. Just loses it at the top of the box.
But it's worst case scenario when the broken clock of the inefficiency of Teo and Leao is right twice a day, because then they hang their hat on that and it's like Leao just made that cross to allow us to have a goal, and that's why we need him on the pitch. Teo can do an amazing 18 to 18-yard run once every 3-4 games, and it's like we need to have him on the pitch because that's what they can do. But it's like taking them off the pitch is probably going to benefit Milan in the long run because they won't have constant play. Like if you watch Leao, any time he thinks he should get the ball and he doesn't get it, he puts his head up, he throws his hands in the air, he turns around and he walks back. If you see that time and time and time again, and you are a young player, you're going to take after that, because that is a player who is making the most money on Milan or one of the most highest paid player on the team. So it's like, if he could do it, I could do it. Why can't I do it? So that's what it goes down to.
Motts, I have to give you your flowers. That was one of the most beautifully said points I've ever heard come out of your mouth. And to come against Milan, it hurts, but that was so true. It is the worst case scenario if this clock is right twice a day, because that's what keeps them on the pitch. I totally agree.
For me at this point, Conceição needs to scrap everything they've done and go Diego Simeone style 4-4-2. I would put Reinders at left mid because I actually think Musa was the best player on the pitch for
Musa's
Milan.
Musa's been balling.
A massive margin. And this is honestly what I would do. I would do Reinders, Fofana, Musa, Pulisic, Santi Jimenez, and Tammy Abraham up top, and just only put runners out there. Like, you got to run, and that's it.
I
would also not play Teo. I can't even think of a reason to play Teo anymore. Like,
yeah, then you got to play Jimenez, and Jimenez has shown all 3 games that he's a liability out there.
He's a worse Teo. Like that, I was watching the game. Nuno was frying. And in my head, I'm like, he is literally like, he's a worse Teo, number 1, but he's also just like a slightly better Emerson Royale. It's like you replace the same player with a slightly more enhanced version. Like, you saw it didn't work, and then you went out and just got someone who does the same thing, but just slightly better, but not at the level you need. He came off in the 45th because Nuno was absolutely frying him.
I will say, in defense of Jimenez, because I actually think he's a good player. He's also 19. He is a lefty, so we've been placing him on the right just because Kyle Walker hasn't been fit. So he is playing a little bit out of position. That does make a big difference for outside backs when you're off on your wrong foot, except for our boy at Napoli, Sunitzola. but in his defense, he's really good, and that's the only reason that he was in the position to be the backup on the right is because he's been playing so well. Off the left, I think it's a different story, so remains to be seen, but he was an absolute liability off that right side.
And then that, I guess, we can point that to Conceição. Where I think it's on Conceição is the selections he makes. I don't necessarily think it's him not like the attitude of Milan. Like that's what their attitude has been. I think he's done a good job of bettering their attitude at the very least. But for me, it's
I
his
disagree.
selections.
I think
I
it's
would
gotten
almost
worse.
wa- I-
I think it's gotten way worse since he took over.
I don't know. I mean,
Dude, that
it was
effort-
pretty bad when
I
Fonseca.
will, if you are listening and you haven't seen it, just watch the last 10 minutes of the game. It was inexcusable.
They were doing that with under Fonseca
It was
too, though. It was the exact same.
embarrassing. It was horrible.
I think that I don't think Fonseca could get some of the results that Conceição has gotten, but I do think that he could have gotten results out of some of these other games that Conceição has looked like an absolute idiot in.
Which, not to change the subjects, but Fonseca's in France and he got sent off with the red. He was like spitting in the ref's face.
Yeah, he
Got
had an
hard
absolute.
red.
He had a
Oh.
meltdown. He had a
Yeah.
meltdown.
To move on here, we got to move on from Milan. We got to talk Lazio, right? Because Lazio played great. They should have scored
Masterclass.
way more goals. I don't think I can point to a player on the field that played poorly. Nuno Tavares was an absolute monster apart from not marking Chukwueze on the Milan goal. The Kanye killed Alex the entire game. He should have had more than one goal. Isaacson was an absolute menace on offense and defense. He was breaking play up, making it happen. I think the only player I didn't notice is Marusic, and that's because he was just playing as a traditional right back. But Ravella and Guendouzi, another masterclass. Ravella chased down Leao at one point. That was insane, like over 70 yards.
Well, even Marisic, he's the one that had the initial shot on the Zaccagni goal.
Yeah, true.
I mean, he was up and down the pitch. I mean, that was horrible defending through and through, but he was there to make that run and get by Teo, who absolutely fell asleep, and then his partner on the other side, Alex Jimenez, also fell asleep because no one has any type of emotion there. And he was like, Mignon's got it. And then Zaccagni was like, nope, I'm going to pay attention the whole time, and I'm going to put this in the back of the net. But in any case, you're right. Lazio through and through, great game. And Isaacson, good player. Great player.
Lazio had a great game. The issue that they're running into right now and why they're kind of stumbling this part of the season, I think is pretty clear. And it's because Tati Castellanos is injured and they just don't have somebody who can score. Dia should have had a couple of goals in this game that he did not put away. He did score one that was called back for offsides, but they need him to come back soon. And I think he's still missing. I think he's out for another 2-3 weeks. So Lazio have to figure out how they can score if they want to continue to potentially make this Champions League run. But they had a great game. From the first guy on the field to the last sub, everybody played pretty well for Lazio overall.
And last thing on Lazio, I want to give more, and I have been all season, more flowers to Baroni. I mean, they play in so many different ways. They're such a malleable team. Like they sat in a 4-4-2 block for most of this game, and Milan could not create anything against them. And they created a million opportunities. And against other teams, they'll be a ball dominant team where they keep it the whole game and they'll win that way. And this is a really, really good team. And this is without their, like you said, their goal scoring guy. And they are so hard to play against. I genuinely think this is one of the hardest teams to play against in the league. They're right up there, I think, with Atalanta in Inter. They're just so hard to beat because of how they play. Look, you're not talking about Lazio.
No, I mean, it was just a massacre. It hurts to think about Lazio, but we can also talk about the other team that we lost to in Bologna, who I still don't think is that good. I will say it. I still don't think they're that good.
Really important that we preface this with right before this game, Logue made a point to say Simone Castro is not that guy, to which me and Motts said he is that guy, to which Simone Castro said, I am going to score against Milan because fuck Lugs. Bologna,
I could have
really
scored the goal that Castro scored. So let's just put that out there. However, he is a sneaky little fuck, that guy. He's actually only 19. I didn't realize that.
No,
But he's really
young.
And he's going to be a
he might not
talent
be in the
going
Serie A in
No,
the next
he'll
couple
be
of
a
years.
talent. I just think he's like a little shithead, so I don't particularly like him. But I also just don't love this Bologna team. I just don't think they're that good. When you,
I mean,
I know. Well, it pisses me off because we have guys out there that I know are not that good. I've seen them play firsthand. Tommaso Pobega is not good. They brought in Davide Calabria, who's not good, and all of a sudden they get 3 points out of every goddamn game, and I'm just sitting here with nothing, nothing.
I don't know, dude. You need to start respecting the badge. You just have a bad attitude towards some of the badges in this league, I think. There are so many good players in this team. Roman Freuler has been one of the best midfielders the entire season. Lewis Ferguson is one of the best midfielders in the league. Like, he's extremely good and can play as a 6, as an 8, or as a 10. We didn't even talk about Dan and Doy yet, who are the game winner, who is, I don't know how he's on this team still. I don't know how he lasted through the summer, because he would be the best winger on basically every team in the league, I think. There are very few players in the league better than him on the wing.
Orsolini, same thing there. Very few players better than him on the wing. He scored 2 goals to win them the game. Also, what about this little stat for your Logs? They have more points this season, Bologna, than they did at this point last year under Thiago Motta and with their Calafiori and Xerxes and no Champions League. So goes to show that if they can continue to keep these players, or if they can't keep them, continue to refuel with this young talent, Bologna might be here for a long time, because they had the same amount of competitions as Milan did this year and way less of a wage bill. And look who's doing better than Milan in the season. Granted, yeah, sure, Milan did better than them in the Champions League, but not by much. They made it one round further.
I mean, is this a manager thing? Is Italiano that guy? I think he is. Does this team not remind you of Fiorentina? I mean, it has to.
I mean, well,
Fiorentina past. I mean,
obviously,
grinding out games, grinding out
yeah, but
games.
I also I still very much see old Thiago Motta Bologna in this team. They just have the ball a little bit more than they did last year. But I mean, we always knew Italiano's good. The problem is he just doesn't always win the games. They don't always score goals. They just usually have the ball.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be the question mark. How do they get better? They definitely could add better players, right? Like, I'm not saying this is the best squad in the league, but the pieces are there of a very, very, very competitive team, to the point of, I mean, how much better is Napoli's first team than this? A little bit, not by much. And if they add the right pieces to an Italiano team, which the Italiano system, we know what it's capable of, they're going to be extremely difficult to beat. They're going to be in that same conversation as Lazio. I don't think they're quite there yet. But I love this team, but we can keep it rolling, right? Bologna
Yep.
did play again at the weekend, so important to note there. They beat Cagliari at home 2-1. That's a big one. The other game we want to talk about, we talked about Roma a little bit last week, and Como actually last week. They played each other in Rome. Roma won this one 2-1. This was a really good game. Important to note that there was a red card. I forget when this was. Sorry, I lost my head thing up here. I lost
The
it.
was
red
early
card
second
came in
half.
like the
Early second half.
60th-ish minute around.
But it was so even
Believe-
up until then. It was such an even game. Como was playing such beautiful soccer throughout, which they do week in and week out. I still think this is one of the
Well, I
better
wouldn't even
teams to
say
watch.
I wouldn't even say it was even. I would say Como was dominating. Not dominating, but they were much better in the first half. And I give it credit to Ranieri. He saw things not working, and he was like, Pellegrini, dude, I'm giving you chances to kind of get out of your funk, but if you're going to keep playing this bad, I will yank you in the 45th minute. And he did the same thing with their striker as well. Just yanked them both right at
And
halftime.
Sule, I think, got yanked at halftime.
No, Sule got taken out in like the 50th minute or so. They gave him like 5 or so, but he wasn't playing Sule in the right spot at that right wing back spot. And then Salamakers came in and scored right away to tie it up. And then Roma's
an absolute beauty.
Yeah, Roma's second goal was also a very, very pretty goal from play and a great finish by Dovic. But I mean, I think that this is a masterclass from Ranieri, and you've really seen what he's been able to do and why you've been able to right the ship. Because he just and you asked the question last week, Bosin. It's like, what is he doing? He's really just making football simple. And like you said it too, like they had Angelino at the left center back. He looked at it and was like, why are we have a 5'5" guy at center back? Like, let's put him to wing, right? Like where he's supposed to be. And then he just allows his players more free. Like he's like, Dybala, go be Dybala. Like let's play Hummels, who was in the Champions League final, but we just can't play him every game. Like, he's just making it the simple, smart decision. Pellegrini, is he a good player? Does he have the big name? Yes. Is he playing bad? Let's take him out. Like, it's like, if you think about it, he just simplified the game or the decisions, and also the players are all for it because two substitutes scored, and Cristante was the one that kind of made or started the second goal to happen, who was also a substitute. And then they subbed in this right back.
Divine Wrench, baby.
So good. Balled out. He played for
January.
he played for
Ajax.
25, 30 minutes, and I thought he was a player of the game. He balled out.
Well, this one, the Ranieri thing, which Flowers to me, I said it was a great hire when they brought him in. I know that some of us were not happy about changing the manager again there. However, it makes me think in other leagues, you can point to a lot of managers who have made a huge difference purely off of tactics. And I think the Prem is probably the biggest example. But when you look at at Serie A, look how many managers are just purely good because they just put the guys in the right spot. Like that seems to be the biggest the difference maker, especially since we've seen so much turnover over the last season or so. And I'll let Motts shower himself in flowers as well. But I do think that this league is not so much tactics, but just putting the guys in the right spot and making sure that everyone's on the same page. And Motts has said that.
No. I'm not. It's not about me. I want to continue talking about Roma. I'm just gonna say, who was pretty good at that last year? Pioli, or 2 years ago for Milan. So that's what I think. You were so thrilled to move on from him, but Pioli was good at managing.
I didn't know what I had, Motts. I didn't know what I had.
No,
I had Roma.
I had greatness.
Yeah, keep it on Roma. Apart from that, it's the same thing we talked about last week, Motts. I don't think nothing has changed. I would say the two things that are still a little bit scary for me are you cannot play Soulé and Dybala together because Soulé is useless when Dybala's playing. And I thought it was night and day performance for when Soulé was on the field. So when Salamaker took that position, night and day. I mean, we saw it. Salamaker scored like 10 minutes after coming onto the field. That made a big difference. And then number two, which Logs pointed out at the beginning of the season, the Mancini defending on the first goal was embarrassing. It was so bad. He didn't even know where the ball was, I don't think. He just turned around and started running.
Yeah, no.
Mancini hasn't had the best season, that's for sure.
No.
But I listened. I was watching the pregame interview, and they interviewed Dybala, who when he is healthy and playing, he is so fun to watch. He draws fouls. He creates. You cannot stop him. He's inevitable when he's healthy. His problem has always been that he's healthy. I was watching that game, and I was just like, oh, I remember these days when he was back on Juve doing this stuff. He drew like 11 yellow cards. He's so good.
Quick tangent here. Quick tangent while you bring up Dybala.
If you bring up Milan, you're getting axed. Okay.
Paramount was talking about this pregame as well. Is Dybala a legend?
Juve legend for sure.
I mean, didn't he win?
Is he a Serie A legend?
Didn't he win 3 Serie A Player of the Seasons?
I think. I don't know how many Serie A Player of the Seasons. He's won 5 Scudettos, 3 Coppa Italias, 2 Super Cups, 2 Champions League finals. Dude, we were beating Barcelona with Dybala, not in the final ever, but we would beat those teams to get to the final. For me, he's a legend. He would probably be like one of my top 5 favorite players if it wasn't for the fact that he just got injured so much, and to the point where it frustrated me because how good he was, but he was just never healthy.
Even beyond that, he would be just regarded as one of the best players of all time if he was healthy. He was, and we see it. This is what you said, Motts. His problem is it's never been consistency. It's never been form. It's been being unable to be on the field. Because whenever he's on the field, he does the exact same thing and just dominates games.
Yeah, honestly, the fact that they brought that up now is actually a little disrespectful with that resume that Motts just pointed out. That is a little nuts. He's for sure a legend. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
nuts.
he's so fun to watch. And that's why Roma is having a lot of success with Dybala. Ranieri's writing everything. They're simplifying it. Dovbik starting to score goals. You have competition within the squad in terms of Sule, Salamakers, Paredes looks good. Like they do have experienced guys who have been there, done that, can lead the team, and then they have young guys that are hungry. It's all starting to trend upwards at the perfect time for Roma because they're very realistically in a European spot. Like they're right there. They're only 4 points away from Bologna, and this was the worst start of I was, I think who Marco, after the game said this is their Roma's worst start in the three-point era, and they are very realistically have a real shot of finishing at some European spot and are ahead of Milan at this point. So, insane turnaround, and this is when you wanna get hot at the end of the season when the games matter the most.
And the other team that played in this with Como, who were superb up until the red card. I thought they won the first half. I'm assuming you guys would agree. Well, they did. They were literally up 1-0. But
They won the first.
even beyond that, they were outplaying Roma, I thought, pretty heavily. And I was kind of like, oh, wait a minute. Is this the Roma that we were used to watching all of a sudden? Like, because Como made them look kind of bad. I think it's on
Whoa,
Diao.
whoa. I mean, they made him look bad, but I think it's more so Como's just good. Como is a good team. These guys play really well together and they play pretty football and they play, I think Czech Fabregas is clearly rubbing off on them in the best way possible. And so I don't know that Roma looked bad. I think Como just played really, really well in that first half.
Yeah, they did. And I think a lot of that has to do with, I mean, Hassan Diao had another goal that was called offsides. He balled, I think
He was off. They were off. He was offsides. I mean, he wasn't offsides. The guy
he was so
who
offsides.
passed it was offsides. I forgot who passed it, but it was offsides by a mile.
but him, if they can just keep this team together and add pieces, they are so goddamn dangerous.
Oh, that's definitely going to be tough. But even if they can't, we have to remember this team is not a newly promoted team with the ownership they have. They have said multiple times, we want to compete. We're going to make investments. So even if they don't necessarily keep Nico Paz or Dia, which I think they have a chance to potentially, they will reload and find other players or find aging veterans as well to balance that out. I think what Ranieri said it before the game, Como's like going to the dentist without anesthesia, so just pain all over the place. And he's not wrong. Like they play great soccer. Like they have great principles. Fabregas has great ideas. They all buy into the system, and I think what they need to worry about is keeping Fabregas
Yeah.
come next season.
I think what they do have that a lot of the teams we go, I'm sorry to bring them back up, but Milan. The difference between these guys is these guys play with freedom and expression, but like discipline and heart, like all in one. They do everything. Like this is not the most skilled team in the league. They have very bright players, but even their best players work as hard as their worst players. And that's what's getting them to that point. Trefetz is a great example of that. I don't think he's had a great season, but he puts in the hard miles every single game. He runs up and down the field. He tries to be creative when he does have the ball. And Ranieri said it. They are dangerous if everybody on the team can score. And that's such a weird place to be in, especially when everybody has the freedom to move around. What I would really still love to see if they can do it. I don't think Nico Paz's best position is down the middle as a striker or number 9. I think if they can get somebody beyond him and then have him play in like that 10 role, that's really dangerous.
Well, when Cutrone's in, he certainly plays a little deeper, Nico, and he plays a little more free roam. But
Cutrone, I think sucks.
I know, but he's a point person. He can at least play the position, and I know that his positioning is good. I don't think that he's great with the ball, but he's good at being the 9. And that allows Nico to be much more creative at the 10 spot because he's a lot more freedom. If you watch Nico Paz throughout the whole game, that guy floats everywhere. But not just mindlessly. He floats into positions that is an outlet or that creates play.
He's like a little he reminds me of Dybala, honestly, is kind of how he plays.
A little bit. I think he's a little bit more swaggy than Dybala, I'll be honest. But He's got some swag, dude. He's swaggy.
Oh my!
Well, Nico Pazzo's my boy, so I'll say that all day long. But to your point on Stravezza, has not had a phenomenal season, but just given the fact that what he did for Lecce last year and where Lecce ended up, he had a team of the season performance all last year. They brought him into another newly promoted side. I wouldn't be surprised to see Stravezza go to another newly promoted side next year. Just given the fact that he's not that great, they don't need to keep him. But now he's been on 2 straight newly promoted sides who have done extremely well. Little lads by the lake, boys.
Yeah,
Don't sleep. I'm
we'll
just
keep it rolling.
saying it.
Keeping it rolling. Fiorentina hosted Lecce and squeaked out a 1-0 win, courtesy of Robin goes into the 9th minute. I think we all agree it's a pretty massive win for Fiorentina. We were kind of saying this is the spell of the season without all of their good attackers. Everybody's hurt. So a 1-0 game, I think they'll take. I didn't think they were going to get a result out of this. I thought this was going to be 0-0 or Lecce win. So you'll definitely take that. Atalanta hosted Venezia. Oh my God, stumbled. Didn't score a goal. 0-0. Story of Atalanta's season, creating a bazillion opportunities and just sometimes not putting any of them away. And that's ultimately what's going to cost them in this race. They're still in it, but I mean, I don't know how. With I think it's more what I'm thinking about is the games they've dropped 3 points in are like inexcusable, like missed penalties, missed wide open chances. And if they win even one of those, like they're so much closer to having actual Scudetto in their fucking hands.
I mean, that I think is you can say that about almost every single team in this top 4 race, maybe even Lazio if you want to say top 5. Like I don't think that Juventus is in the race at all, but if they don't stumble in 3 games and you get 9 points, you're now first. Atalanta, same thing. Napoli, and same thing for all of them. So it's like that's kind of been the theme of this season in the Serie A is like weird losses and drop points at weird times to not have a bigger cushion. But yeah, this is not good by Atalanta at all, especially knowing that you only have one competition to play for now. And I think it can somewhat go back to what we talked about last week, like how good and how much chemistry right now is in the locker room. Lookman did play very well, so I don't think it affected him too much what they talked about, but how much is Gasperini 1 foot in the door, 1 foot out the door? He's been linked with Roma now. Now also I'm seeing Juve as well. Retegui, same thing, linked with Arsenal. He didn't play very well this game. So there's going to be a lot of noise out in Bergamo that they're going to have to kind of zone out and make sure that they can win games. But their next 2 against Juventus and Inter. So yes, it would be massive if they can win those, but probably not going to get 2 wins out of that, depending on what happens. Like they could very much be in 4th or maybe even 5th, pending if they lose both those games. So big stretch for Atalanta coming down the final 11 games.
Part of me, and it's a majority of me, yes, this game is inexcusable. Venezia, who's for sure going to be relegated. It's a 0-0 draw on paper, in real life, live, after the game, inexcusable, especially where Atalanta sits in the table. But even if they have 2 of these chances go, this is a completely different outlook, and they were not remotely far off from having at least 2 go. In the first half,
Venezia could have won this game.
I disagree. I disagree. Venezia should not have any business winning this game.
But that was the only reason.
Point. Hold on. What's your point?
I just want to bring it back to what Motts was saying. Like Motts was saying, like, oh, if any teams didn't go on these stretches, but like I think that's the difference. The games that Atalanta have dropped points in, they've had these kind of chances where it's like, how did you guys not put that away? And it's always more than one of those in these games. Like it's several, and I don't understand how it keeps happening.
They were cursed. This was a cursed game because, and as I'm gonna bring some moments out from this matchup. 2 headers in the first half. Retegui by himself just miss. He usually buries those. He's one of the better players in the air in Serie A. Those should be going. Then in the second half, he's gotten this ball a million times across the ground at the PK spot, slots it home. He misses on that or goes straight at the goalie. Lookman is on the goal line by himself. They made a beautiful move off of a spot free kick, or maybe it was a corner, and gets by his defender on the goal line and puts it miles over the bar.
Yeah, that was a
Absolute
corner.
moonshot. Absolute moonshot. Don't know how he missed that. But aside from that, Lookman also just played really, really good. Still playing really prideful soccer, even after the comments from Gasparini, which I really commend Lookman on. Again, it's inexcusable. I'm not going to say that this is a Scudetto winning moment for them, but I wouldn't be too down. They just need to put those away. I mean, again, it was cursed. It's like maybe 2 or 3 chances like that may not go your way, but this was like 10 chances that like usually are surefire goals. And so to that point, I still think that Atalanta have the quality to make a run here, and that as long as they can just maybe not have a witchcraft go on during the week, that they'll be fine.
Okay, but Lokes, you want me to read you who their games are in their next 5, 6 games?
But you hold on, before you even start, you're just going to tell me that they're playing top of the table teams. Atalanta is one of the best teams in this league. It doesn't matter.
It does
They
matter.
they
'Cause
should they should be beating
are
they should be beating they should be beating every single team if they're going to win the Scudetto.
Well,
I think they can beat every single team.
Inter, we know they're gonna lose to. So that one, like, you just count as a loss.
because the
But that's
system.
my point being is this late in the season, I actually think I brought it up against Roma. Maybe I'm just going to tell myself that I'm an idiot 3 weeks ago. But at this point in the season, it doesn't matter who you play, in my
I
opinion.
think it does. I mean, I agree.
You
If
just
you're a
need to
top
win.
team, you need to win all the games that you have. But if your schedule is Juventus, Inter, Fiorentina, Lazio, Bologna, Milan, and then you have a team like Juventus who's 2 points behind you, and I don't know their schedule off the top of my head, but they're playing, let's call it a Parma, Lecce, Genoa, Torino, you're gonna there's obviously an easier schedule there than what Atalanta has. So yes, every game has to be winnable, but you would put your money that Juventus is probably gonna get more points out of those 4 than what Atalanta has because of the toughness of the opponent. So I agree with what you're saying, like, it's every game's a must win, especially at this point, but the ease of schedule does play a factor, obviously.
Fair enough. Keeping it rolling. Udinese got it done at home against Parma. Won that one 1-0. Parma, that's scary, scary times. 1 point out of relegation zone right now. Torino went to Monza, won that one 2-0. Torino's really rolling right now. That's a really good team. And kind of what we've been saying all year. There are very few teams in this league that you go into a game, regardless of who you are, feeling like super confident you can win. And Torino is really showing that. They brought it to Milan. They've been bringing it to everybody recently, so they're really good. Empoli and Genoa played to a 1-1 draw. We know both those teams are really good defensively, and that's kind of what played out. And then we finished the weekend with Verona going to Turin and Juve pulling out a 2-0 win in that one.
Well, before we even get into the game or like higher level conversations, the fans of Turin are not happy with Juventus because, as I talked about prior to us getting into the games, Juventus obviously got knocked out of the Coppa Italia by an Empoli team who is in relegation zone and literally said, "We don't give a shit about the Coppa. We are going to play our C and D players. And if we lose, we lose." But they didn't lose. They actually beat Juventus. They looked better in every sense of the word. And the cherry on top of this was that Juventus played their A players. They played all their starters. So it wasn't even like they played their next gen and lost. It was we fully went to go try to win and lost and lost in PKs, but it very well should have been a 4-1 game Empoli. So terrible showing, especially coming off the fact that 2 games ago we lost to PSV in another awful showing. So the Juventini are not happy. They were protesting. The management is a ghost. The coach is terrible. Fire the coach outside Tiago hotel. Not obviously the best, right? I always say, like, I agree that Mata hasn't had a great year, but I want to see more than just 1 year, or else it'd be another what?
Adamant. When I saw this, I hated it.
Yeah, that's what
They're
I'm
in
saying. I don't like it.
they're in 4th place. Like,
You need to, but once again, Juventus expects to win, and they got rid of Allegri and they invested 130, 150 million in the summer, and now we're having a worser season than we did under Allegri because we did at least win the Copa and we did come in 4th. We might not. I mean, Lazio's only 2 points behind us, so it's not like we're guaranteed Champions League football. So I understand why they're upset, but they just Italian fans just go about things so poorly
Very
every time.
reactionary,
Yeah.
very
There's
emotional.
like, what do you guys expect is gonna happen for a new manager in the first year? Like, he has to teach them. I agree it needs to be better. What we need to have seen is needs to be much better, especially with, like, the leadership and the desire, but you can't make change in a year. You need more than that, right? So, it's just like we did it with Pirlo, we did it with Sarri. We didn't do it with Allegri because we were like, "We just did it twice, we can't do it again." Now you wanna do it again. It's like there's no it doesn't add up, it doesn't make sense. So I didn't love to see that, but I did love to see this reaction from Juventus today. They won 2-0 and it took a while to get the first goal in the 72nd minute, but they were on the front foot. They were like, "We need to win this game." They understood they needed to win this game, and they dominated the entire game, making sure that they were pressing high, keeping the ball, generating chances. There was a style of play that they were trying to continually do, a pattern of play, and eventually finally broke the low block of Hellas Verona. And then they ended up getting a second goal, which was a pretty lucky goal for Coop Miners, but at least he got on the score sheet. You saw how much it meant to the teammates of Coop Miners, which that means they see him struggling. So maybe this can start to project Coop Miners in his Juventus career because we know it's been a pretty big disappointment. But I would just from this game, obviously you need to win. It was 2-0. Could it have went 1-0 or potentially 1-1 because they had that goal called back? Yes, but I like the mentality. I like the mindset. I like the tactical approach. And I liked what I saw out of Juventus in this game.
The Shaw map is hilarious. I don't know if you guys have taken a look at it, but it is an absolute dot fest. 27 shots. I think they had 7 or 8 on net, which is definitely a ton.
9.
2x 9 on target. 2xG for Juve is actually really good.
We
You
were
don't take
attacking.
these-
We were attacking this entire game.
My
As
favorite
you should though. You're playing Verona.
I agree. I agree. It's not like this isn't like, oh my
As you should.
goodness. I agree. This is what we need to play like. But what I was texting you guys when I was watching was, how are we going to react when it's 1-0? Are we going to go sit back? And did we take our foot off the gas a little bit? Yes, but we didn't do it as much as we've seen us do before in the past, especially like in the game against Cagliari. We totally took our foot off the gas and just held on. This game, we were like, let's go try to at least score a second, and we did. So I just like the mindset and mentality more. You have to build on it. This is 4 wins in a row now in the league, which is huge. We have no chance of winning the Scudetto. So I don't want anyone to think that I think Juventus is going to win the Scudetto. We're 6 points off of Inter, which is not like it's realistic that we possibly could. We have no chance of doing that. It's not going to happen. But being 6 points away and having this, like, you're protesting to fire your manager and you're 6 points off of first place. Like, and I agree. Once again, it's not because of anything Juventus has done. It's because what everyone has done outside of Juventus in terms of losing. But you're right there. You're starting to string things together. Let's build on this momentum.
My favorite part about this game was Kefren Turam, who is my Juventus player of the season so far, scored a goal and was a dominant player the entire game. I don't know how he doesn't play every game, the entire game. He's been that good. But the part that I really loved is when Coop Miner scored, he was way happier than when he scored. And he wouldn't leave Coop Miners alone.
Yeah.
Coop Miners was like trying to get back to midfield, and Kefren Turam kept like grabbing it or making him celebrate. Like, that's the kind of thing. That's the Fino alla fine. Kefren Turam, like, is that guy already.
Agreed.
Like, he's got it.
Agreed. And I don't know if you saw his goal against Empoli, world-class goal. So now Thuram scored 2 goals in 2 games in a row. He's totally taken that next step from last season to this season. He should be playing every single game, and the press gets mad at Mata that he doesn't. And they actually asked him before the game today, why do you not play Thuram more? And he basically said, like, I'm not, like, I know what I'm doing. Shut up. That's basically what he responded to the press. But Thuram is proving him that he needs to be in every lineup. The issue is he doesn't know who to take out. Like, Weston has to play because he's like our most creative midfielder, which stinks, but it's true. Coop Miners has to play because that's his son. It's like the Di Lorenzo Spalletti thing going on with Thiago Motta and Coop Miners. And then he likes to play Locatelli without Vega there because Gatti and Kelly and Kalulu don't progress to play from the center back. So it's tough to fit him in the spot. But I agree. Thuram needs to play every game.
One thing that I forgot that I hated this so much and it was happening so much. Cambiaso playing as like the left center back in possession. I cannot hate it more than I hate it. And I just want to point that out. I don't need to talk about it too much, but I don't like that.
Well, I mean, he is good on the wing, but you just think he's a winger.
He
You
is a
don't think
winger.
he should be in the
No,
defensive line
he is
anyways.
a
So
winger.
that's not surprising that you think that you have that mentality about it. I mean, he got player of the match based on rating, so it couldn't have been that bad. I guess my question here is, Motts, and I guess I just feel it because of the way that my season's going, and clearly a whole different bracket being that Juve's in fourth. You've gone 6 games, 18 out of 18 points in league play. Sure, you've had a couple of stumbles, PSV and Empoli and Coppa Italia. What is the main tactic, the main thing that Juve is doing when they get into these Serie A games, that they're a completely different team and they do look like as of the last 6 games, look like they could be in the Scudetto race? What is that missing piece that's not there when they played PSV, when they played Empoli?
Well, I don't necessarily agree that we've looked good in these games. Cagliari, we should have drawn. That should have been a draw. Like that should have been 1-1. We were holding on for dear life. The Inter game, you take away Colomboani's masterclass 0-0 draw. The Como game, once again, it was strictly Colomboani. You can argue that they got lucky, or we got lucky that they didn't get a handball and we got a penalty to end the game. And then, but what I'll just tell is the same thing. It's leadership. We have no leader on the field. Mata's not the greatest leader. We don't know who to turn to. I think we really miss Bremer. He could have been that guy for us this season. We really genuinely just have no real physical leader and someone to lead and kind of grab the game by the balls. Locatelli tries to. I don't know if he knows how to do it yet. We're also just young. Like, we are a young team. Our average age is like 23. Sometimes we are definitely scared of the moment. I think that's on the players and Mata. I think sometimes Mata doesn't relay to the teams how important a game is, like the Empoli game. You need to relay to the players, we cannot lose this game. And he did not do that. He did that today. Like, you saw from the players, we cannot lose this game.
Yeah.
I think, and I said last episode, every single game from here on out is a must-win for Juventus, and they lost the next game, and you saw what happened. That the fans protested. They want Mata out. They hate the management. They hate everything. So I think that's what it is. But you need to give him more time. This is his first time doing 3 games a week. It's a big jump, right? Bologna, it was great what he did, but there's no stress. There's no Bologna. It's just all gravy. You don't have to win. If you do win, it's awesome. If not, we get it. We're Bologna. Juventus, you have to win. It's way more pressure, and he needs to adjust to that. And I think you need to give him time. But I mean, now you got the press coming out that we got Conte in the works, De Zerbi possibly, Gasparini even. It's just like, give the guy a break. I fucking hate the Italian media with how often they write articles and shit. It's like, relax.
It honestly, the reaction out of the Juve fans is what should be coming out of Milan. I know you said that the fans protested the game. It didn't seem like they were out of the stands in that first half, but
Dude,
this
you
is the
didn't see
response that
you didn't have the
this is the
game on in the
response.
first minute.
Right.
The San Siro was fucking. I think there was 400
empty?
people in the stands. My mind was blown. I was like, holy, this game is empty.
It's like a COVID game. No, but that's the response I want out of Milan. So at least you get some kind of pride and fire.
Bringing it back to Milan, obviously.
Hey, listen.
Moving
They do it all.
moving on here. We got to be done. Games going on this week. Quick spotlight for you. Champions League, we've got Inter going to Feyenoord. In the Europa League, we've got Bilbao going to Roma, and Lazio going to, again, I'm going to butcher them again, Victoria Pilsen. And in the Conference League, we got Fiorentina taking a trip to Greece to play Panathinaikos. Always a tough place to play, Greece. I know that much. And then we got match week 28 at the weekend. Genoa at Cagliari, Venezia at Como, Torino at Parma, Milan at Lecce, Monza at Inter, Bologna at Verona, Fiorentina at Napoli. Wow, Napoli's getting that game at a good time. Holy shit, because Fiorentina with everybody injured. Roma at Empoli, Atalanta at Juve. That's a good game. And then Udinese at Lazio. That's a tricky one for both parties involved there. And that brings us to
Colpi di Luna.
Coppa di Luna.
what happened last week with Colpi.
Hand up.
What
Hand
happened
up.
last week with
Well,
Colpi?
listen,
Motts?
honestly, I was right there, dude, with the amount of fucking chances Napoli created. Why don't you just get some quality there? Replace Cavada. The bet hits.
I did.
We could have.
I sweated out the 1.5 you made today. They
Yeah.
they tried really hard not to cover.
We could have. I was gonna say, with the amount of Colby hits that we've had this season, we could have sent some money over to De Laurentiis so we could have replaced Cavada.
All right, let's get into it. Well, you lead it off.
All right,
here.
listen. I think this one's pretty obvious. Both teams playing with a ton on the line. Juve, Atalanta, over 2.5. I wouldn't be surprised to see 4 goals in this game, but we got over 2.5 at -115. You take the value, you take the hit. That's leading us off. And I'm hot still.
I wouldn't be
don't have-
surprised if that game's 0-0.
It could be 0-0. I'm taking Lazio at home against Udinese. I don't think Udinese is good when they compete against like the top level teams. They just do a really good job of competing against the teams that are worse than them. And like I've said all season, I love Lazio. I think there's a little bit of value here at -145. So I'm just gonna follow it and hopefully we get a hit here.
Well, I officially hope that our Colby doesn't hit because I want Lazio to lose so Juventus can increase their lead in terms of points. So hopefully this Colby. So
Nice, dude.
make sure you bet each leg individually because we want this to lose. But my
Sheesh.
pick is going to be Bologna money line, and I'm forgetting who they're playing. Hellas Verona at Hellas Verona. Bologna's hot right now. They're scoring goals. Verona allows like 36 goals or 37 goals this season in the beginning of the first half or the start of in the first half. Bologna score in the first half. I think that they win the game.
Don't know the odds on that because Motts didn't run it down, but we do know
-140. No, I don't know.
Motts.
It's a conservative Colby this week. We will say that.
Well, we haven't hit it a little bit, but we're
It's
not going to
probably
hit
a plus
again.
500 range. You know what to do, guys. It doesn't matter. You bet the Colby, you bet all 3 legs, and you watch a bunch of Serie A footy. That's the formula for success every single weekend, and you don't fray. That's it.
-130.
Nice, dude.
All right,
Thank you.
and that's it for us, guys. Shout out Nate. Love the comments on YouTube. Keep them coming. You actually,
Sir.
I love the points. Love the things you're bringing up. So keep those coming. Everybody else, keep commenting. Like us, follow us, subscribe us, rate us 5 stars if you can. We cling to that. We don't know if it helps us. We think it does, but rate us 5 stars if you see us. And Lokes, where does everybody follow us again?
First and foremost, shout out Scotty. It was his birthday yesterday. Big 60. Happy birthday, Scotty. And
Happy birthday.
You can give Scotty a shout out everywhere you go on the socials. We're on X. We're on TikTok. We're on Instagram, YouTube. Follow us on YouTube. We need a couple more followers there. At Calcio Culture FC. And you know where to listen to us right here on Apple Pods and Spotify. Before I give it to Motts, I hope I'm wrong on Milan. Motts, take us away.
Great episode, boys. Let's see how my new mic did with the new equipment. But to all the paisanos still listening, do not be a gagoots in Forza Calcio Culture.